Patrick Quinn Hofmann, he goes by Quinn. When I went into labor with him, it was very, very early. And I always say that he came into this world early and he left it early. He was a fiery little fella. He was a friend to all unless they crossed his friend, and then he became the mighty Quinn. I want to say that he was kind of a bully at times because he did not like it when people bullied people, so he became the bully. But I don't think that Quinn's introduction into this world of addiction and recovery and loss started for years and years and years. He grew up with 4 brothers and sisters, and his brother was his best friend, and his sisters were they feared him. But because Kenny and Quinn used to play a lot of tricks on them. But we really shot through childhood with not a lot of things to say, that we had a rocky road. They went through a divorce with me, with their father. That came rather young in their childhood. And the reason I decided as a parent that I wanted my sons to have their father in their life. And so with a little bit of convincing on his part, I let their father have custody. I went with the girls and they went with their father. And unfortunately, that didn't last very long, and I had all 5 kids with me. The boys wanted to be with me, and so that was quite young, too. We managed to get through middle school, and we managed to get through high school and graduation, and with really not a whole lot of issues in their lives. The normal childhood broken bones, the normal childhood trouble in school. In fact, Quinn didn't like people getting in his space. Like I said, he didn't, if somebody got in his space, there was an issue. But my children knew my whistle. And if that whistle was heard, it was time to come home. And they're like, Quinn, your mom's calling you. So, but we got through all the normal everything. So honestly, we walked on time. We graduated on time. Quinn went directly into the military. That was his choosing. And he went in with his sister. His sister had been prior Navy, and they decided to go into the Army together. So we jumped a whole lifetime here into where this didn't even start yet. I mean, we went through not even knowing what drugs really were in our home other than DARE. Remember the DARE days? And I still even have their little certificates that they signed in DARE saying that they were not going to use drugs. So Quinn went into the military, and basically his very first duty station was Europe, Germany. And he immediately, no sooner got to Germany, and he was in Iraq. And so he did 17 months in Iraq. Well, when he was in Iraq, he was a supply person, and they were doing a convoy, and one of the convoys in front of them, one of the Hummers in front of them, hit a landmine, and it went one way, and then the Hummer that Quinn was in went another way, and so there were a lot of injuries that were sustained right then and there. And one of them was Quinn. He hurt his back. And so he went from Iraq not really knowing that his back, though he knew his back was injured, but that it was going to become an issue later on. They sent everybody to Afghanistan, and then from Afghanistan, they had to go to hospitals in Germany because they couldn't really care for them in Iraq. And as time progressed, Quinn's back got worse. And so he was medically discharged from the military. And I think this is where it all started. And that's why I think this is where Quinn's story really starts with what your storytelling does. Quinn hurt his back bad enough that he was in treatment with the VA. And the VA was sending him home with tons of pain medication. I mean, to tell you, these pill bottles were this tall and full. They were mailed to the house like that. And I didn't even know at that point in time that what was happening to him, that he was taking something that was that addictive. They were basically told that, you're not going to get that much relief for your pain through Oxycontin or oxycodone or whatever it was that he was on. And he didn't talk about that to me. He was living with me, but he didn't tell me that it was causing him to basically withdraw. Anyhow, so I also did not know that he was going and seeking street medication because he was now self-medicating. And I did not know that. And I did not know that he was even in an addictive state then. And I don't think he really knew it either. I don't think that that was something that either of us knew was happening. And he met a girl who I thought at the time was a nice girl. Come to find out she was an addict. And when Quinn became further involved with her, she was able to teach him how to buy these on the street because she wanted it too. And she ended up in prison. And Quinn ended up in addiction. Now Quinn was in addiction, and he was seeking more than just Oxy or Percocet or any of these other self-medicating drugs. He was seeking something stronger because he wasn't getting what he needed anymore. He was in full-on addiction. I did not know that. I, as a parent, I did not have my ears covered. I did not look the other way. I just didn't know that this was happening. I was not raised in a house where drugs were. None of us kids did it, I mean, I think my brothers and my sister, pot, that kind of stuff, but nobody was an addict or knowledgeable to one. When I found out was when I got a phone call one evening that Quinn was in the emergency room and he had OD'd. And I said, "What do you mean OD'd?" I immediately got into the car and went to the emergency room where he had already gotten out of there and away from me. I spent the next 2 days looking for him, and apparently I found him. He owned up to it a while later into our story. Apparently I found him one night, but he hid and told the person, "Don't tell her I'm here," because it was a person that could give him more drugs. Now we're in heroin. We're talking about heroin now. From that OD, Quinn got involved with some people that apparently were stealing from Walmart. I don't know the whole story, but the whole story led Quinn into getting arrested. And when he got arrested, because Quinn was a veteran and I was a huge researcher, I got him involved in what they call Veterans Court. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Veterans Court did start going through a few states, and he got a good judge in his Veterans Court that listened to me. And I told him I want him to be in treatment. I don't want you to put him in jail. I don't think he needs to go to jail. I think that he got mixed up with the wrong people, but I think he's an addict now and he needs to be in recovery. And he listened to me. And the judge put Quinn in what they call a 17-month in-residential treatment program in Escambia County, Florida. And he did 17 months of residential recovery, and they have to be checked constantly. And it's a huge program. And he did this residential treatment program and came out of there Quinn again. But let me tell you about the 17 months. We supported him. We went to every graduation, every level that he reached in it. We were there. And when I say we, we're talking about me, his sister, his brother, his grandfather, his brother-in-law. We were there to clap. One more step. Each step you were making, you were recovering. And so we're going to fast forward now. He comes out of that program a new man. He's not addicted anymore. He is an addict, but he wasn't addicted anymore. And he came back out of that program. He had to go into 12 months of probation. So the probation was in Escambia County, so he lived with his sister during those 12 months. But he's still in recovery now. But he started drinking, and I told him, I don't think that's good for you. I don't think that you should be drinking. I don't think you should be doing anything that medicates you. But I wasn't getting through to him. But he wasn't doing drugs, and I guess I was happy about that. And he was getting through his probation, and he was getting through his pain, and he was hanging out with the right people. He was going to church. He was doing everything right. And we're even fast forward into this went for 3 years. He stayed in recovery for 3 years. And so that was from 2020 to 2023. In 2022, he lost his brother. My son, Kenny, died by suicide. And it was horrible on Quinn. It was horrible on the whole family, but it was devastating to Quinn. And I didn't know where that was going to take us. That kind of devastation, to lose somebody that was so close to you your whole life, and now your brother, who you looked up to, is gone. And he saw the impact that it had on his father. And I got concerned because Quinn had met another girl who I was getting a lot of signals off of. There was an issue. There was something happening with him and this girl. And I read it right. Come to find out, she was an addict. And she was not a recovering addict. She was using. And she saw Quinn in this vulnerable state and started giving him pills. And the long story short is I saw it happening. And one night when he came home, I said, you know what? I think you need to change your scenery. And your father said that he would like for you to come to Missouri and stay with him for a while. He's having it real rough with his loss of Kenny. Those were his two bio children, Kenny and Quinn. And I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea that you go to St. Louis and live with your dad for a while. Well, he drove to St. Louis, and a little town outside of St. Louis. And about 9 months into living there, still clean, he started contacting with that girl again. And so Jackie started texting me and saying he's talking to her again. I said, well, you need to have his father talk to him. Well, Quinn and I talked every day. Every day, like clockwork, we talked. I mean, because if he wasn't on the foot of my bed, he was on a call to me. And so he told me that he's decided he wants to stay in Missouri and that he found a house he wants to buy. And I'm like, oh, my God, you're going to actually buy a house and stay there? And I was supportive. I didn't want him to stay there. I wanted to come home to his mom. But I helped him through all the paperwork. He got a VA loan and, helped him through all that paperwork. And I'm telling you, lots of paperwork. I helped him through the down payment, the closing, everything. And he got a house. Quinn was a homeowner. Well, she found out. And she begged him to come get her. And apparently she was in some kind of trouble. She had gotten herself involved with the guy that OD'd, and people were out to get her. And she convinced Quinn to get in his car and come get her. Well, I guess they packed her whole house up into a U-Haul, and somebody else was driving Quinn's car while Quinn was driving a U-Haul. But apparently somewhere in between that, she gave Quinn a pill, and he OD'd in Alabama, in which she threw him at the doors of an emergency room in Alabama with no shirt on, no shoes. I don't know that whole story either, but she got all the way to Missouri, got that U-Haul emptied, and then drove back to Alabama to get Quinn. Quinn called me. Quinn told me everything. He said, yeah, Mom, I took a pill. I OD'd. I don't know what it was, and it was fentanyl. But apparently she got him to the emergency room before anything happened. But, before he died. But now she's living in Missouri with Quinn, and come to find out she had ties to Missouri. And this is where story comes almost to an end, because the people that she knew in Missouri, the fella that she knew in Missouri, was a drug dealer that pressed his own pills, and he was huge in fentanyl. And that's what he did. He pressed pills. And he started giving the pills to her and giving them to Quinn and Jackie, Quinn's other mama, my ex-husband's wife. She said, Cheri, something's wrong. I see it. It's happening. He's back. He's using again. I don't think he's in full-on addiction again, but he's out of recovery. The night before Quinn died, we were texting back and forth. We were setting it back up to get Quinn back into a veterans treatment program. We were going to intervene. We were going to get her gone and get Quinn back into recovery. I called Quinn that night. I talked to him. I said, Quinn, I can't lose another son. I can't. No, Mama, you're not going to. Those are always his words. You're not going to lose another son, Mama. Everything's okay. Everything's good. Everything's going to be fine. He would always end it with, I love you, Mama. Every call, I love you, Mama. That night, apparently, because 6 hours later, Quinn was gone. All I know is I got the phone call. I think I was numb because I had already lost a son 7 months before that. And I don't think that I think I was silenced right then. I mean, my grief was already still trying to get over one son, and a grief is a lifetime. I think it's another addiction. But then to hear the words that we lost Quinn that night, and then I had to go and tell his grandpa the next day. I couldn't call him that night and tell him. I couldn't. My dad's 91 this year, and I just couldn't. These boys were his life. I mean, he loved those boys. And I mean, I haven't fished since I lost my sons. And let me tell you, they were my fishing buddies, and I haven't picked up a rod since I lost them. And maybe that's my grief. Maybe that's how it operates, I am living in a town that every street has a story on them. That's where my dad retired. That's where those boys were basically raised. And every street has a memory with them there. So Quinn's a veteran. We've said this. Keep in mind, he's buried in a cemetery called Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery in St. Louis, Missouri. I mean, he has a plot there, and it's a beautiful cemetery for veterans. And however, he was cremated. I did not get to see him, but I found out from the coroner that her whole story to the paramedics was a lie, that, he was just talking to her an hour before that. He must have taken something when she wasn't looking. He had been gone for 6 hours before she called 911. She had emptied his bank account. She had made sure that she put everything in that house that was paraphernalia. She had it all set up and ready for the police to arrive and the paramedics to arrive. And so there's her story. That's where Quinn's story of his life ended, but not his death, because I will continue for the rest of my life to grieve both my sons. But I won't be silenced anymore. I did grieve in silence in the beginning, but now I believe that our stories need to be told. I believe that if we get out there and if one person hears even an inkling of a story that I just said, or where his life was, or I did not have blinders on. I just didn't know. And moms don't know. They see their kids for who they are. And if one person comes to me and say, what you said impacted me, and I went home and I took a closer look at my child, it's important that schools and restaurants and nonprofits, everybody has Narcan in them. I mean, because the coroner told me Narcan would not have saved Quinn. He had enough fentanyl in his blood to kill well over 20 people. He said he was gone within minutes of taking the pill that he took. And he said also, he was very clear to me that there's a thing called modeling or whatever, that Quinn had been gone for quite a while before she called the paramedics, up to 6 hours, he said. And they moved him. So, I mean, am I upset over him? Yeah, because I don't think it's very Christian of me to not like someone very much or use the word I hate someone, but I do not have it in me good that what happened with her. I hope to God I never have to come face to face with her again because she's back in this area. And I can tell you, though, that the fellow that sold the pill and that she got a plea bargain when she gave up where he was. And he did get picked up by the police, and Quinn was written in his impact as a victim, and he is in prison right now. But I'm waiting on his sentencing. He has pleaded guilty in a federal court, so Quinn's story is still happening. And in March 17th, we will know what his sentencing is. So that's all I can say. I don't want to give up his name. I don't want to, but I can tell you that he did plead guilty to the charges. We did get to give our victims' impact statements. So our story continues. But I'm sad that I lost my son, and I'm sad that I didn't know more as a parent or know what to look for, what the signs were. But I said this a little bit ago that I think that grief is an addiction too, and I think that it's a good addiction, but we will have it for the rest of our lives. These were a part of us at one time. Quinn was my son, like I said, he decided that he wanted to come very early, 28 weeks now, and then he left at 38. And that's old in comparison to some of these children that I see that they're losing their lives, but older. Quinn had his whole life ahead of him. And, I tell you something, he was a handsome young man, very handsome. He could have had his pickings of nice girls, but yet for some reason he was drawn to the not so nice girls. And I'll never know why, because he had a good life. I mean, we had a good home. He was raised right. He was corn-fed, we call it. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.